Martha McSally, thank you so much for coming in and sitting down with us.
Thanks for having me.
Let me begin by, this is a crowded Republican race, not a lot of time. Obviously, name recognition, very important. How do you get your name out in a very short period of time?
Yeah, well, we were talking about it earlier. I'm more of an endurance athlete than a sprinter, but it has been a big sprint for us. So we've been getting organized, meeting with people, getting our messages out, doing everything appropriate in order to identify to the community who I am, what my story is, what my background is, leadership, command, education, 27 and a half years serving my country, and what I bring to the people of this community and to the nation at this time. So we're sprinting doing that. Although my political career is only 5 weeks old, I do know how to strategize, plan, and execute, and so that's exactly how we're doing it.
And people can visit your website to find out about your military experience and your career. But I want to ask, why are you running for Congress, and why right now?
Our nation is at a critical time right now. There are so many things that are facing us, whether it's the overwhelming debt, whether it's the economic situation for us here in this community, the national security threat that's coming at our border and is in our neighborhoods. We've got to address healthcare, we've got to address education. There's some just critical things going on, and we need leadership, and we need moral courage, and we need someone who's going to do the right thing regardless of the cost. And I've got 27 and a half years of experience doing that in the military with leadership, command level leadership, standing up for what I believe is right. And so I felt very convicted and called that now is the time for me to step up and serve in a new mission.
How do you get yourself to stand out in a field of four? Three of you have military service, so that doesn't necessarily make anybody stand out. But how do you get yourself to stand out?
Well, I am very much focusing on communicating to the people of Southern Arizona what I bring to represent them and to serve them in Washington, D.C. Again, I've had 26 years in the military. I was the first woman to fly in combat. I was the first woman to command in combat. I retired as a colonel, so I was working at the strategic level of the issues that are facing our nation. I worked on Capitol Hill for a year, one of 7 in the Air Force selected to serve as a legislative fellow. So I've been involved in U.S. Congress, legislative initiatives at that level. I'm also the one who took on the Pentagon for making our women wear the Muslim garb in Saudi Arabia. Put my career on the line for that. And then wrote the legislation, got sponsors on both sides in the House and the Senate, both Democrats and Republicans, and personally shepherded that legislation through Congress. As a citizen, got it unanimously passed in the House and nearly unanimous as an amendment to the Defense Authorization Bill in the Senate. So that experience I have, culminating most recently as a professor of national security studies at the Marshall Center, where I was teaching and leading senior government officials from all over the world as they're transitioning to democracy, free markets, and facing the security threats we all have. So I'm focusing on just sharing with the community what my experience is, my demonstrated leadership at the command and the strategic level, what I've been able to do in Congress as a citizen, how much more I'll be able to do representing them as a congresswoman, and the national and international level experience required in order to get things done to turn this country around right now.
And you're running in the special election right now for Congressional District 8, and you're also running in Congressional District 2 in the fall. Why are you running for both?
Well, because, again, I think the people of Arizona, the people of Southern Arizona are needing some continuity from this point forward and leadership that starts now and sprints into the next election. So from my view, this is a 2.5-year job, and it happens to be 2 elections at a very short period of time. But we have a lot of issues that are facing us right now, and so we need somebody who's going to get in there and is going to have the continuity to cover and represent and lead this effort. As soon as the special election is over, hit the ground running, and then through the next 2 years.
Just to follow up on that, are you concerned if you were to lose the District 8 nomination in the Republican Party, but then run again for 2, that there would be a handicap there, having just lost in one election and then turning around to run in another?
I'm running to win in both, and I'm focusing on making sure that I get my message out and my experience and my record out to everybody so that we can have a representative for 2.5 years, and so that's my focus right now.
Democrats have made a lot nationally of what they're calling the Republican war on women. You're the only woman Republican running in this race. So how do you take that? Do you see a Republican war on women at this point?
Well, there's a lot of issues that have popped up, obviously, recently that are causing a lot of discussion on these issues. When it comes to the issue of contraception, I personally see that as a religious freedom issue. I see it as a symbol of the federal government trying to overreach in many different areas, and in this case, it's related to religious freedoms. Certainly, women need to have health care and need to have access to contraception, but that, from my view, that has to come from personal choice and having the right insurance company that provides that to them without having the federal government being mandating religious organizations to provide things that violate their own conscience. So I think it has been maybe spun in different directions on both sides, quite frankly. And as a Republican woman, I tend to just bring my record and my beliefs, but also I think we got to get out of the name calling. We got to get out of the polarization. We got to get away from the visceral demonizing that I think is happening right now. Most people are tired of it, and so am I. So I am a Republican woman, but I've shown that I know how to lead, I know how to get things done, I know how to analyze and be reasonable and objective in order to do the right thing, and that's what I plan to bring.
On your website, you mentioned that there are some cases of the government sort of overreaching into people's lives, and that could be one example. But I'm wondering if you could give us some specific examples and then also what you would propose to do to solve that or change that.
Well, the key to getting this economy going again is small businesses. Small businesses are the ones that create jobs. And so the federal government has been trying to use stimulus and use taxpayers' money in order to get the economy going. And from my view, we need to get the federal government out of the way and set the conditions so that the free market economy and the entrepreneurial spirit of the American people can thrive and actually be creating those jobs. So talking to small businessmen, the regulations that they have to deal with coming from the federal government, and then honestly they're at the other levels, at the state and local governments as well, it's very difficult for them to navigate in order to just be able to get going so that they can create the jobs in order to have this economy moving. So there's many different regulations coming out of the federal government, but that is just one example. The tax burden and the complexity of the tax code and the amount of time it takes everyone in order to actually comply with the tax code is another burden that I think needs to be addressed. So we need to simplify that and keep taxes at the lowest level possible so that money stays in the pockets of people, so that growth can happen, which then generates additional revenue. So those are just a couple of the examples.
You've been able to live all over the world thanks to your Air Force career. You've come through Tucson a couple of times at Davis-Monthan and
Right.
12th Air Force in different capacities.
Right.
Why, when you decided to get out of the military, why Tucson? Why settle southern Arizona?
Well, this is my home. It's my adult home. In the military, you do move around a lot, but I've been blessed that I actually have had 4 assignments in my military career in Tucson, Arizona at Davis-Monthan. So that's almost 10 years of my active duty officer career, which was only 22 years long, I spent in Tucson, Arizona. I bought my home here in 1994. I bought some land in Elgin in 2006. And my church is here. My community is here. This is my home. And so I'd always intended to come back here. And now I'm stepping up to serve and lead.
And right before you ran, you were living in Germany teaching national security studies as a professor. Is that right?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that front, national security, in your race, where we need to go as a country, if anything needs to change?
Sure, absolutely. The world we live in is changed significantly. We do have serious threats to our national security and our national interests. If we just look at even the transitions of the Arab Spring and what's going on in the Middle East, we have national interests in the Middle East that are potentially threatened because of the changes that are happening in the Arab Spring. A nuclear Iran, obviously, is something we cannot tolerate, and so that threat is very significant to us. We even see what's going on in Russia with the flawed elections and the direction of going to more of an autocratic role. My students were coming from former Soviet bloc countries, and I'll tell you, our allies there are very concerned about the direction that's going on there. The issue closest to home, of course, as representing this district, is the border. I mean, we have transnational criminal organizations that are just south of us that are trafficking weapons, people, money, and drugs into our neighborhoods. They now have presence in over 1,000 cities in America, and their flow is coming through this district. And so this is a national security threat. This is a very serious threat that needs to be addressed at the tactical level, operational level, and strategic level, because it is not just impacting the national security of our nation, but it's impacting the security of the people in this district. From my view, the Congresswoman from this district needs to lead that fight in Washington, D.C., because we have not shown the political will to address this threat very seriously, and we need to do it.
What does that look like, though? What would be the solution for you?
Well, as I mentioned, I think we need to look at it both tactically, operationally, and strategically. So we do need to secure our border. We do need to know who's coming in and out of our country and what their intentions are. So we need to use the technologies that we have available to do that at the tactical level, which is fences where appropriate, combined with other technologies and sensors and lights and manpower. Airborne capabilities. I mean, we know how to do this. I mean, I've done this in the military at the operation level. We are spending more effort trying to secure the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan than we are in our own neighborhood here, which is so close to home. So we have to have those barriers, but we also need to look at the root causes. There are drug cartels that are fighting for routes in and out of our neighborhoods, and we have to have sort of a campaign plan against them, and that's the lead federal agency of the Homeland Security working with partners to the south. They're doing some of that, but it needs to be stepped up to a more operational campaign plan. But we also have to have a strategic view in partnering with our closest neighbor to the south. I mean, Mexico has been fighting this war since 2006. So almost 50,000 people have died. There's been security forces and military and police that have died just as many as we've lost in Iraq. So this is serious business, and we are partnering with nations around the world trying to help them deal with ungoverned spaces. We need to also be partnering with our closest neighbor here to the south instead of focusing 11.5 time zones away with all of our efforts in other places. So.
Going back to something you said a couple of minutes ago, we need to reduce the debt. That's something we hear a lot about. Obviously, there's no quick fix, silver bullet, simple solution. But what are some of the things that you would like to see done to get that deficit down? Yeah,
as you said, it's not a quick fix, but the trend of where we're going is on the wrong glide path, to use a flying term. In the last course I taught at the Marshall Center, I had a student from Greece. And this military officer came to our seminar one day, and we were talking about civil-military relations. And Penny Otis said, should a military officer continue to put their uniform on and come to work, even if they're not being paid? And it shocked most of the people in the room, but it became very personal. We see what's going on in Greece, but you see now personally, we have this young military officer who doesn't know whether he's going to be able to feed his family. They're going through serious austerity measures, and it's because of the decisions that have been made over the last many years. We're on that same glide path. So, we are now at 102% debt, 102% of our GDP. If you look at our public debt, it's over 70% of our GDP. You can continue to grow under those circumstances like Greece did, but you're going to eventually get to where you can't grow anymore and your interest rates start going up, trust starts to diminish, and then you can't, all your taxes are going to paying interest on the debt. So we have got to get that glide path going in a different direction, and really the whole pie chart needs to be looked at. This is not conservative or liberal, this is math. We need to sit down together, we need to look at what the federal government is responsible to do, and we need to see how we can save every dollar in every program to minimize this and change this glide path. So everything should be looked at.
All right, we are out of time for this, but we'll have you back in a couple of days. So thanks so much for coming in.
Okay, thanks a lot for having me.